get all the assets, trying to get all the assets done and in the game, and then finally publishing your game, putting it online, and making sure that everyone can download it. So let's talk about the pre-production stage. So the concept, you probably know what a concept is, the whole idea and basis of the video game. It's usually revolves around what makes the video game unique to other games. So in the concept, one of the things, you'll focus on is, is the important part the, attacking, is the important part the animations, some interesting mechanics that might kind of come up and separate your game from other ones. That's usually the main focus of the concept. Sometimes it can even involve story. If your game is a particularly unique story or interesting story that involves the gameplay, then that's always kind of in the concept. It's the first idea that everything often stems from. In industry, one of the ways that they kind of do it is it's all about searching for opportunities in the market. It's about looking for what games kind of haven't been made yet that would sell well, and trying to search for ideas that they think a lot of people want to see. For indie games, it's usually a bit different. So if industry games means big business, just like EA, Electronic Arts, Nintendo, large companies that are trying to make a lot of money. Indie games are usually made by smaller teams or even individuals. And for those, it's usually searching for an idea that you think would work well with the resources that you currently have. So, unlike in Smash Brothers, where they try to make, the best models that they possibly can to run on the Nintendo Switch, Undertale uses, simpler graphics that were easier for the creator to create at the time, all of that. A few colors, enemies just aren't always in colors, that kind of thing. And those can be some of like the differences between the concept. So moving on to a prototype. So a lot of people don't realize how important this can be in game development, but it's a really good idea to get to try and get on paper an idea of what your game kind of looks like. So for prototypes, what some people kind of do is really simple versions of the game that are either made out of paper or made in like a simpler programming language like Scratch or Construct. So for example, for Nintendo Legend of Zelda, at first they kind of made like a little kind of paper prototype, and they were able to move all the things around and kind of see how it would look, just to see if the game kind of would be fun, or if there's different changes they have to make in the concept and in the planning to kind of see how they can make it the most fun or interesting. If you've never heard of things like Scratch or Construct, they're like really simple kind of programming tools that you can use to just put something together really fast. And doing this kind of gives you not only a little look into what the game might actually look like, but it also excuse me, it can also give you something to look at later during development and actually kind of direct you, or it gives you something to fill in almost later as you're developing stuff and trying to figure out the exactly where to put stuff. So it's always really useful to do a prototype. If the a full paper prototype or a full kind of Scratch thing is too much, you can always do a smaller one, just drawings on a paper showing what the game might do, detailing exactly what things will or might look like, and then see how it kind of looks from your perspective. So that, I think that's pretty much it for prototype. So moving on to so I kind of just mentioned this one, pre-production, because this is the main kind of aspect of pre-production, is something called the game design document, GDD. So this is mostly used in industry, and for a lot of indie developers, it's really good to use it. I mean, I can't say that all of them always do, but in our club we try to use this as often as we can. It is a document that kind of outlines all of the info about your game specifically, exactly what will be in it, exactly what mechanics are and how they'll work, exactly what gameplay will look like. And here's kind of an example of one for Guacamelee, a game from Drinkbox Studios. And it shows images of things that I referenced for like the art style. It shows extra info, the story, the gameplay. This is just one page of it. Sometimes they can be many pages long, but this kind of game design document is typically what you have when you want to pitch your idea to get people to join you. You show them the game design document, and you see how what they think about it, how it kind of works, etc. So when you're making a game design document, there's a lot of stuff that you can fill in. I'll kind of be going over like a full, absolutely completely filled in game design document that I'll be showing you. But when you're making one just for, a simple game or a smaller game, it's okay to kind of leave it, leave some sections blank and kind of work on them later. So the first kind of thing would be, a big overview for kind of page one. This is, the genre, platform, like it mentions, kind of what kind of people are going to enjoy this game, whether it's supposed to be, widespread for a huge audience or just for, a couple people who just so happen to like strategy games or something like that. That is a big thing for the overview. And also, this loop here is kind of like a so you can also add in like a core gameplay loop of what it looks like when the player is playing. So here you have an example. You enter your level, you find the key, you watch a cutscene, and you exit the level, which is pretty typical for a lot of games. But yours could look anything like what you feel the gameplay will continuously do in your game. Next, a detailed introduction to the story. This doesn't have to have exactly all of the story as it does here in this page here. Like it doesn't have to have every line of dialogue exactly what listing out exactly what happened. But a good introduction that mentions kind of everything that happens is critical here. Keep in mind that this is a document for development. It's not really going to be shown to the players. So if you have any twists in mind or you have any secret endings to the story, etc., all of that, then you can totally list it here. It's a good idea too, and that will, it'll not only give you an idea of what just the story of the game will look like, but also it gives you an idea of how much you exactly have to develop, how many levels there might be based on how many changes in scenery there are in the story. That one can be pretty critical. Characters as well. So it's easy to lump this in with stories. But in a lot of games, the characters are kind of separate from the story because you can control the characters and make them do other things. And so that's kind of why it can be important to separate characters. And of course, there's sometimes protagonists. Because they're controlled by the player, they won't really have too much to write about. But info on all the characters that mention their backstory, what they're like now, what they can do. This can always be pretty helpful to kind of showcase more about what your game will be like. And also detailed info about the gameplay. So yeah, that includes things from controls to how the camera will look. Is it going to be a top-down or a profile game? How exactly you'll move, what exactly that'll look like, the most important gameplay aspects. All of those are definitely included here. Another thing you might want to include is interfaces like, will this game be controlled through a controller, or will it just mostly be mouse and keyboard? Another thing you can outline is levels design, and all that info. So as you'll see here, sometimes they'll have maps of levels. They'll have listed out what different objects in the level will be, what they'll do. For some games where there are specific levels and level design is really important, it can help a lot to list out all the levels or some of them in the game design document. So next, you can also mention stuff about the soundtrack, what exactly you want it to be, what kind of music you're looking for it, and also concept art is always good to include there as well. Although sometimes you might not quite have a lot of the concept art done yet, so it's always okay to add it in there later. You can see some random concept art. And that's kind of it for the pre-production stage. Once you've got your game design document, you're ready to share your idea with everyone, and you can kind of move on to actually producing the game, so actually making it with either by yourself or with a team. So if you're trying to make a big game, usually and you don't have a lot of time, you kind of grab a big team, a team that involves programmers, artists, writers, people to just kind of fill out exactly what we discussed in the game design document. So one of the things that can help a lot if you do have a big team is project management tools. So as you see here, we got a Gantt chart, for example, where you kind of assign roles and tasks, and you fill out how long all the tasks should take. This used to be a very popular method of doing this in game development. Nowadays, software tools like Jira are very popular, or Trello, if you ever heard of those. for project management. But it's usually a really good idea to have some kind of project management down. It doesn't exactly have to be as complex as this, but largely, once you kind of get into production, yeah, it's good to know who's working on what. And then, once you kind of have all these tasks they're worked on, they're pretty much complete. It's a good idea to have almost another whole round of production where you polish the game. You kind of go back, you double check a lot of things, and you see what could have been improved. And without this, you'll notice there's a lot of stuff like infamous bugs in games. You might have seen this in, this is from Assassin's Creed Unity, but in a lot of other games, things will glitch out, lots of weird textures and all that. The whole point of polish is to kind of go back and over the finished product and try to find these and make sure that they don't really happen. It won't really seem too important at the time when you're making the game. A lot of times you'll kind of produce it and they'll be like, well, it's working, then we'll send it. But a lot of times, without a careful eye, these games can end up, or these bugs can end up ruining games. Besides just this, a visual bug that just looks really creepy. If you heard of Cyberpunk 2077, those kind of bugs prevented players from playing the game at all. And in those cases, well, yeah, if you can't really play the game, then it's quite unfortunate, all that work going to waste. And then there's publishing. So this could mean different things. For very large games, it usually means marketing and putting it on, stores, getting it on discs, etc. And for those, a lot of people rely on big publishers. So you've probably heard about a lot of these companies: Capcom, Ubisoft, Activision, of course, Rockstar Games. And big publishers are good at really getting the word out about games and trying to sell a lot of them. If you have a small indie game, it's probably not so much or so wise to be sending out stuff to these really big publishers. And instead, you can use publishers like, you can just publish it yourself on Steam or itch.io. If you ever heard of that, it's a platform that sells a lot of indie games. But those are a lot easier. All you got to do is upload your game and it's on there. But yeah, that's pretty much it for publishing. So now we're going to kind of go on to the activity. And I think what we'll do for the activity is we're going to start kind of making our own video game, and we're going to go through like the 3 stages of the game design document outline. And we'll kind of go through the pre-production steps, and we'll kind of write a quick game design document. So I'm not too sure how if we're going to have you guys or at home kind of work on this a bit. So what I think I might actually do is I'll quickly make my own Google document here, and we'll go through it together. I just have to make a new Google document. I wish I had this prepared. Here, 1 second. I'm just going to stop sharing for 1 second while I prepare the document, and then we will get on with it. So while I'm kind of going through this and I'm kind of showing game design from the beginning, feel free to either come up with your own idea and make your own document at home, or you can just kind of follow along with mine and see what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. All right, awesome. So here, blank document, got to fill some stuff out. Let's go back to the 3 first kind of steps of the game design document and see what we got. Okay, so we need a concept. We're kind of going to skip prototyping for this because we're just going to do it quick, and then we're going to write a bit of the game design document. Okay, so concept. Just for a bit of a pre-warning, I am just doing this live. I don't have any concept planned, so if I come up with an idea that someone else has already done, don't blame me for it. All right. Now let's see. So one good way to come up with a concept that I've found is to here. I'll write this down. See what other games inspire you. So let's say, for example, you've played a really awesome game on Steam, or another, an awesome multiplayer game, something like that, and you thought it was just so much fun. But maybe there's more excuse me, there's a bit more you can add to it. There's some other aspects that you think might be interesting, or even you can combine 2 of your favorite games, or something along those lines, to make like the best, or a cool, interesting combination with new mechanics, that kind of thing. So it's a good idea to start with a genre. I'm just gonna throw out a genre here of strategy because I've been playing a lot of strategy games, that sort of thing, and they're between all of them. I always kind of wish for more, right? Like there's cool things in different games. Like one of my favorite games is Fire Emblem. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but it's like a strategy kind of warfare game. Where you have all these soldiers and you put them out there, then you kind of control their moves. Um, but and yeah, I mean it's pretty fun. One of the big things of Fire Emblem though is like there's a lot of hmm, there's like a lot of characterization and story and all that stuff, etc. But the thing that I kind of want to take from Fire Emblem, I think, is like the strategy combat, right? So you take all your units and you kind of move them forward, and you do that. So maybe something like that. Another game that I'm really into, or that I'm really interested in right now, are factory games. So if you're not too familiar with factory games, this means games like Factorio, Satisfactory, or I think one's called Shapes.io. It's a new one. I might just open up a quick tab and show you what this looks like. Factorio. So in this is a game where basically you make a giant factory and you try to produce stuff. So you'll find like an ore of a vein of like iron, and then you'll have miners or these electronic mining machines that dig up all the ore and then smelt it into plates, and then they ship it off somewhere else, and then you turn the plates into gears, or you turn them into like iron rods, and you use those to make other things. So then you use them to make a train to better move stuff, or you use those to make more conveyor belts to move stuff faster. And in that, you kind of keep on building. The other game I mentioned, Satisfactory, is a similar game, except it's in 3D. But it's based practically the same idea. You just make a very complex factory and you do all this. Both of these are really fun games, by the way, especially if you love big, complex systems that you kind of get to make yourself from scratch. I definitely recommend them. And the last one I mentioned is quite new. In fact, I don't know if, yeah, not really too worth showing. But all right. So both of these are strategy games. They're both in the same genre, but they're quite different. Now, I wonder if there's like a specific way that we can kind of combine them. Well, the idea that just kind of popped into my head would be, what if it's like a factory game? So just like the other ones, so you mine resources, you produce parts, you make stuff. But the whole thing you're making, so you're making robots to fight off enemies. So now bringing in the strategy combat, what you're doing is you're trying to produce a ton of units that you're going to put on the battlefield, and you're going to fight against a bunch of guys who are coming to destroy your factory. Maybe it's a bunch of rogue robots that you're trying to beat or something like that in the story. And then to me, this actually seems like a pretty cool concept, because here's like the main kind of idea of it is that Fire Emblem is a lot of fun. You get to play all these units and put them down, but you don't, because the units are all kind of individual, you don't really get very much control over what their stats are like or anything like that, right? You get Arthur, the Axeman, who's very strong and very slow, but you can't really change him, or you can't really have Arthur be a fast swordsman or anything like that, right? And that ends up kind of limiting you. You didn't decide and ask for Arthur; the game kind of just gave him to you. And the thing about the way that this game would kind of remedy that would be by letting you make your own robots, right? You can kind of decide what units you want and how you want it to all look, and that might be quite interesting. The thing about factory games is that it's cool to make all these systems and factories and build all this stuff and be able to mine all this stuff. But once you have it, what are you going to do with it? Just use it to mine more stuff? That kind of feels a bit cyclical. There's not really a main. I mean, there are some goals in those games, and those games are quite good about giving you goals. But the payoff for beating or for getting all that stuff is unlocking more stuff to do more factory. Well, I'm thinking, what if instead the payoff is that you get to make cooler units, bigger units that can do more, or that have more abilities and can do more awesome things. And in that way, you'll kind of get to make your own robot army, do that kind of thing, go out and collect more resources, etc., and be able to craft more things. So in that way, this game might kind of solve two kind of well, not issues, but two aspects about those games that I don't particularly like. And in that way, I think it might be pretty cool. All right, so I think that's pretty much going to be my concept. By the way, if you guys, or let me see if I can take a look at the chat here. If you guys ever do have, any questions or any points to mention, feel free to send me a message. I'm not sure if I'll be able to see it all if it's on a Zoom message, but hopefully I can. And then I'll be able to, hopefully answer or incorporate your ideas here into this. If you have any other ideas about, strategy, excuse me, about strategy combat, or how we might better introduce this. But currently, this I kind of like this as the main concept. Now, I guess next, so we would need a name. The name that you pick for it doesn't always need to be final, and the names of games change quite often. So it's no problem if we if we just pick a name that barely kind of partially fits in there. But let's see. What if we called it? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is something like BattleBots, but of course there's like 10 games out there already with that same name, I'm betting. What if it's called? Usually, a lot of these factory games, they put factory in the name, like Satisfactory or like Factorio and Satisfactory, to kind of help advertise to players that it's a factory game, because very few players really like those. But what if it's called? I could run off the word arena. Let's call it something like Factory Arena. No. Oh well, I'll keep it a Factory Arena for now, just because it's yeah, we just need a working title. Okay, great. So we have Factory Arena. Our concept is that you make a factory to produce robot parts and produce a small robot army to fight off bad robots. Yeah, and okay, so far this is looking pretty good. What was the next step? Let's check. Yeah, like I mentioned, we'll kind of skip prototyping. We looked at a couple, or I mean, I showed you what some of the other games look like, so we can probably assume our game will look like something similar, or at least the factory part will. But now we're moving on to the kind of game design document. So let's go down here. Let's just try and get an overview and then some gameplay, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about the story here. Okay. So overview, what exactly the main gameplay will look like. Okay, so player starts off in a material-rich area. So what this might look like, it might just be a 2D top-down map, or maybe it'll be a, these games might be kind of hard to make in 3D. If I had a huge team, I'd recommend we do it in 3D, but maybe not so much, because I don't think I do. So we starts off in a material-rich area, mines some iron, copper, etc. Some basic materials to try and get some basic materials to try and get some stuff going. They set up factories to automatically, or maybe not factories. I'm going to say mining machines to automatically. Particularly, one of my terrible character flaws is that I have awful spelling, so I'm going to misspell a lot of these words, and hopefully you guys won't mind too much. But yeah, so they set up mining machines to automatically mine these resources. Yep. Okay, so they'll set up some machines to automatically mine these resources. They'll need to be crafted. They will need to be crafted into other materials, then eventually crafted into robots. So what exactly do I mean by this? I'm kind of, well, I guess at this point, the specifics will kind of go into a bit in gameplay. So here I'm going to call this just a little bigger folder overview, and then down here I'm kind of getting it started with gameplay. So for the gameplay, I'll kind of get into this first. Sometimes you might, before I show what the overview thing is, just because not too many people are familiar with just the idea of the factory things, but everyone, or almost everyone, is familiar with the concept of Minecraft. So you know how in Minecraft you you grab some iron, you craft into sword. It's not always exactly that simple. You grab some iron ore, you smelt iron ore, craft into sword. Well, not exactly you just craft into sword. You combine sticks and iron ingots to make sword. And you make the sword to defend yourself from the enemies. All right, cool. Well, in a lot of factory games, so let me bring up Factorio as an example. So the iron ore, and you can make machines to do this, but in general, if you wanted to do this by hand, because in the game you almost always make machines for it, it has to go. So let's say that the thing you want at the end would be something like a conveyor belt, right? Or maybe I'll just say it's like a cannon. In this example, just because our robots will probably have little cannons or something like that. Then you'll start off with iron ore, but then you'll turn the iron ore into iron plates as you smelt it. This is the same thing as like the iron ingot. Okay, so it's similar to Minecraft now, but what's the big difference? The difference is that we don't kind of just take these plates and turn them into a cannon. We take these plates and turn them into gears. Iron rods, right? Maybe iron wheels. Maybe if it's like a bit of a mechanical cannon or something like that, then you need some copper wire, and copper wire requires. So hold on, this is gonna get big, but what we need is iron ore, copper ore, which is made into like copper ingots, which is then crafted into wire. And then gears plus iron rods plus iron wheels plus the wire makes the cannon, right? And then, maybe the cannon can't even fire yet because you need to take iron ore and turn it into iron plates and then turn that into cannonballs. So as you can see, the difference is quite big, is that for most recipes in Minecraft, there's only one level. You have one resource, iron ore, and you turn it into one thing, the iron sword, right? But in this case, you kind of have these plates and you turn them into gears, rods, or maybe it could even be like you turn them into gears and iron rods, and then the iron rods are what turn into the iron wheels, right? And so you kind of have to craft like 6 kind of things in succession in order to finally produce enough parts to get your final product. If you're familiar with a lot of mods in Minecraft, that it's very similar for those too, right? Is that they will combine a ton of different things. Like you'll have to make gears and then this and then that component and then redstone, etc. And this kind of complexity is what attracts a lot of players to the factory stuff, is because this makes well, first of all, there's a simulation aspect to it, is that it's kind of realistic, that instead of just taking an ingot and putting it on a stick and you have a sword, you actually have to produce parts and then use those to actually make the things that we're going for. Or maybe this should also take plates plus gears plus, yeah, something like that. But anyway, this this idea down here, or the complexity is kind of what separates the two. So in the case of our game, as I mentioned, I kind of want it to be a factory-like game. I was also hoping for complexity, which is good because we have an end result, the robots, that actually do require quite a bit of complexity, right? They're going to require things like tons of gears, plates, wiring slash even circuitry. Oops, sorry about that. Sorry about that. My headset died. Just give me 1 second. Yep, there. Looks like you can still hear me. All right, yeah, I plugged it back in. Sorry. So anyway, it could require wiring. So iron wires slash circuits. Circuits? I didn't spell that right. Yeah, I thought I spelled it the first time. Anyway, and those circuits might require a bunch of other stuff, right? It might require, wiring plus iron plus even silicone. So maybe another resource could even be sand that you have to smelt into silicone, right, et cetera. And in that case, you could kind of have these big complex recipes that you kind of make your factory for. Okay, cool. And also another thing, I mentioned up here, you might even need the cannonballs. What about ammunition for your robots? What about power for your robots? So there's another thing. What about power? You need to mine coal, build generator, and do kind of all that stuff. Now, this game seems pretty complex already. So kind of from what I just put down from the gameplay, it's not really going to be a game for everyone, and not everyone's going to like it. If I kind of wanted to pitch this idea to like a AAA studio, they probably wouldn't really like it, right? They'd probably be like, well, not very many people would play it, and if we wanted to make it good, it would take us a ton of resources. Yeah, not really. But as an indie game, I think it might make a fantastic indie game because we kind of have a lot of complexity. To me, being able to combine all these things to make this stuff seems super cool. And we have a goal. We're making these robots to kind of fight with them. So now that we've kind of got this out of the way, let's kind of talk about what exactly our core. Actually, well, let's talk about what our core gameplay loop will look like. So step one is will be the player will work on the factory. So what this means is, well, I mean, what we know this will mean is just it'll be you put down a mining machine, then you make it automatically put the ore into a smelting machine, then it automatically puts that into a crafting machine that then crafts them into rods or the rods into wheels, etc. And then you put all the pieces together in a robot assembly that then gives you your robot. Okay, so then it gives you your robot. Then the next kind of step. So I'm gonna say step two. I want it to be something like so produce robots. So one of the good things about this is that we can offer the player a lot of different kinds of robots, right? Maybe there's some that are quick, maybe there's some that are very durable, and maybe there are some that that can fly even and do a lot of other things or help out their robot friends in other ways, like distributing power, etc. And when we do that, we can then let the player decide which ones to produce. They all will likely take different resources. Some of them will be harder to make than others. And so there's a bit of strategy in deciding what kind of robots you want. And so producing robots can be a bit of a task there. Step three, I kind of like it being something like control the robots, order the robots, something like that, to fight off bad robots. So in gameplay, in a minute, we'll kind of get over. We have a couple options of exactly how we want to do that, but that kind of thing. So then step four will kind of be something like salvage slash witness the carnage of robot combat. But then you'll kind of go back to step one. So step five. Step one. So we'll, after you do that fight, then you'll go back to your factory. You'll look at the next robots. Maybe you'll upgrade some stuff. A big thing about the factory games is unlockables. As you kind of do more and you produce more, you'll unlock new ways to craft stuff, right? Like for example, at first, you can just turn iron plates into gears, right? And that just takes one ingredient. Well, what if we then make different crafting machines that take two ingredients and produce the more complex things, or even more and even more complex? What if there are ways to speed up certain machines to make other machines more efficient? Other ways to produce power? There's so many different upgrades and ways that we can do it that we can kind of repeat this cycle for as long as we can offer the player new robots to fight and new ways to work on the factory, right? Maybe we even unlock more areas of the map, new areas that have more resources or different amounts of things. One thing that's usually typical about a lot of these factory games, specifically Factorio Satisfactory, is a really big map. They'll have these giant maps that let you kind of run around and find these resources yourself. And what makes this fun is that you can kind of scout out new areas and say, oh, well, I like this area because it's got a lot of iron here and a little bit of copper there, so it'd be good for making this. And it'd be cool if we could offer the player that as well in our game, but it might be quite complex and take a lot of work. We're going to kind of assume for this game that, we're going to have like a little team to work on it or something like that, and we don't really mind how long it is. So maybe something like going back to work on factory, that might actually be interesting. And then, it's cool because you might have to make these robot patrols to patrol a huge area because you don't want, well, hold on, before I say anything about that, why don't I kind of explain what I was talking about before with the or what I had in mind with fighting off the bad robots. So I called it Factory Arena, right? And what we could do is we could have factory separate from combat. So you have one map that's your factory, and you produce these robots, and you just select which robots you want to move, and you have another map that's just pure combat. So this would kind of look like, maybe I'll go back to the Factorio. This is your factory map, right? And then it's got all your delicate factory stuff, and you don't have to worry about any of it being destroyed or anything like that, because all your combat is going to happen elsewhere. A whole nother map. Well, and none of these are good examples of that. I'm trying to find a good example of anyway, you'll just have like a blank, cool arena where your robots can just fight. So that's one option. We could also have robots attack the factory. So this produces something interesting. This is what a lot of the games, namely Factorio, does very well, is that now you have to protect your stuff. And so when you're making these robots and making defenses, it gives you another thing to put all these iron plates, iron gears, etc. into. Excuse me. So yeah, we could have the robots attack the factory, and you'll have to defend it. If we do a big map, it might be hard to defend different large areas of the map, but maybe that adds to the challenge. That's actually quite fun. If it was up to me, I would kind of say keep this bottom one. If you guys have any preference, which one you think would be cooler, let me know, and maybe we'll go with that. But for now, I think we're going to have the robots are going to attack the factory. So periodically, robots will come in. Oh my God. Yeah, I remember when I mentioned the spelling. Anyway, robots will come in and attack your factory. So they'll destroy your conveyor belts, and they'll destroy your mining machines if you kind of let them. They'll just walk up and start blowing them up. So you have to have, you have to try and make robots to repel these attacks. And maybe your player can also fight the robots too. So at the beginning, you're not caught off too badly. But yeah, and then you have to your robots will defend it. An idea that I kind of like would be that if we what if we had, and then this will go back to the story, scattered around the map are like rogue factories. So these are like factories that are automatically making the bad robots. And they'll make them until they have a bunch of them, and then they'll send them to attack you. And the longer the game goes on, the more of these rogue factories that are activated, and the more robots they produce, the game will kind of get harder. Looks like my headset cut out there for a second. Sorry, I hope you didn't miss too much. But anyway, I was saying you scatter around the map of these rogue factories, and they'll send some robots to attack your factory, and you'll kind of defend. But you can go and or sorry, you can make a robot attack force and destroy these factories. And then that's quite interesting because maybe some of these factories are sitting on these awesome resources that now you can take and use to add to your robot army. So that's pretty cool. Um, so I kind of like that idea. And then maybe right at the very top of the map, so far away, there is a massive factory that produces a ton of bad robots, and that is your goal. Your goal in the game is to wipe out that factory. And it's going to be tough because there's so many, but once you kind of grab control of more areas and you start producing better and stronger robots, eventually you have the power to destroy it. Yeah, that's awesome. That gives you a goal. Okay, I see we have about 12 minutes left here. So what I think I'm going to do, I'll wrap up. So we have the overview. I'm going to just write a quick story for it. And then for characters, we'll mostly just have the protagonist, so we'll kind of see about that. I already explained gameplay. I'm not going to do any concept art, so we'll probably just call it there. Okay, so let's try. Oh, hold on. So what font is this? 16. I'm going to call this one story. Oops. Okay, so what if the story is something like mankind or humans built a ton of robots to help with daily tasks. So like for example, it's like the future, right? Maybe I should have led with that. It's the future. Humans built like a ton of robots that to help with daily tasks. Like there's like a car wash robot. There's like a bunch of them, and made factories to produce a ton of these robots. Then they all went rogue. Maybe there's like a main AI, right? That like everyone hates. And everyone hates. Like there was an AI that controlled them all. Here they all went rogue. Also, there was an AI that controlled them all. That wanted to wipe out humanity. Humanity hid a ton of stuff, got destroyed, and now you're on this kind of dystopian. Yeah, so I should write this. You're on this dystopian planet. You decide to take it back from the robots using robots of your own without AI, or maybe maybe that's a bit of the ticket. It's not so much without AI, but this time without the rogue part. Okay, so you're on this dystopian planet. You decide to take it back from robots. Yeah, using robots of your own. Okay, perfect. And then I think that's a pretty good, cool story. The AI mainframe is in a giant facility. Your goal. Boom. So as you go through it, you kind of make these good robots, and you try to do it. So this is a good story because it helps us kind of fulfill everything that we're looking for. Or at least, I mean, it's a really big outline of the story and exactly what happens. Maybe there are characters that help you, or maybe there's more to what your protagonist does. But oh, sorry, your goal I should write is to destroy it. Okay, cool. So you decided to take it back from the robots using robots of your own. What was it? What was I saying? Oh yeah, I was saying it lets us fulfill a lot of the goals that we were looking for. So one of them would be, so we mentioned that you're periodically attacked by a bunch of robots. So the AI's factories kind of produce them, and you can destroy these factories to be attacked less, or that kind of thing, and grab more resources. Okay, cool. That checks out with the story. But also this, all the robots went rogue. The cool kind of part about that line means that we can have throughout the map a bunch of wandering robots that are bad and they're just going around. And now the player wants to produce a ton of robots to kind of clear out areas and get rid of these, roaming rogue robots. Could also be interesting because you might be having your factory and all of a sudden you're attacked by this crazy car wash robot that's just you never seen it before. It's not like a robot you would produce or anything like that, and it kind of there's a lot of opportunity for it to be uh, interesting. Um, so yeah, for now, I kind of like that. Um, yeah, let's see. So my next steps would kind of be to well, despite kind of the game design document, because it's not always exactly like this. I would, so for levels, we kind of have one big map. I talk a bit more about the map and how exactly I'd want the map to work. Um, One thing about these kind of games is that we might be tempted to say, okay, let's have a bunch of different maps, and you have to destroy the AI mainframe on each map. So then you'll start from zero multiple times and make a new factory multiple times, and then that would be a different loop than what I wrote here. Then that loop would be, instead of salvage slash witness the carnage, move to a different location. What I was thinking, which is similar to a lot of these factory games, is you have one really big map and you're just trying to clear out that one big map. And once you've gotten to the end, that is the end of the game. There's no more game left for you. That there are upsides and downsides to each. The level system works much better for AAA games. More players receive that way better because when you have really casual players, they don't want to keep on playing and keep on playing and go forever. They're going to keep on playing for a bunch of levels and eventually quit, right? And so dividing it into levels gives them good places to quit, good places to stop and come back way later, and it also provides them with difficulty. You make the early levels easy, the late levels very difficult, and then in that way, they'll quit when when they've met their match, right? Um, but this way that I presented it instead is more for hardcore players, for people who want to have a level and then keep on working on that level and make a big factory and let it get really complex and then keep the stuff that they were working on. See, that's one downside to the level system would be that you spent all this time making this factory to make all these robots, and now you're telling me we're just going to move to a new zone and that whole factory is going to be wiped out. I mean, uh, if making the factory was fun, but the fun part was in part the fact that you get to keep it. Um, anyway, so that's kind of why I like this loop a bit better, keeping it all on one big map. And I feel like hardcore players who want it to be like a big conquest would appreciate this more. We could also add difficulty, that determines how often the robots spawn and how difficult the robots are. Um, but one kind of downside to this way as well, and an upside to levels, is that there aren't really any checkpoints with this, right? As in, let's say that the player loses and their robot army was wiped out, it wasn't quite made efficiently enough or something like that. Then if their factory gets destroyed, they'll kind of have nothing and they'll kind of have to make a ton of stuff again. Um, if you have levels, then sure, if your factory's destroyed, you just restart the level and make a new one there. But but in this case, yeah, if your factory is destroyed, you're kind of screwed. But I mean, there are ways to kind of go around that. I mean, some people might like that because then, okay, it's like a roguelike, right? When you lose a lot, right? Some players might like that. Alternatively, we could have when the bad robots come and they'll destroy parts of your factory and then they'll go away. Or they'll destroy some parts of their factory, and while they're doing it, you can make more robots, so it's not that bad. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's advantages and disadvantages to both. But yeah. All right. So I've done a lot of talking. I have like a general thing here. Yeah, from here we basically add to this document until we've outlined most of the stuff, and then share it with other people to see who else we can get on board. It's also a good idea to share the incomplete document once you got half of it with a lot of people to get them on board to help you complete this, and then get more. I still would definitely recommend, no matter how big the project is, have some kind of big plan. whether it's the formal game design document like I went over here, or if it's just, something outlining exactly what you'll do and when you'll do it. That really helps it get completed pretty often. Rat Rouge. There we go. Okay. So, I guess that's pretty much all that I've got. I know I've only got 3 minutes left. Any uh, man, sorry about that. My headset is really being mean today. I don't know what's going on. It's plugged in. I don't know why it's turning itself off. I'll make sure before my next workshop that it's perfect, or that it's not going to do this anymore. But yeah, if there are any questions, concerns, anything like that, feel free to let me know. Or if you've made your own game design document and you want to show it to me, feel free to send it, and I'll take a look. Give me a suggestion or editing options, and I'll leave some comments or something like that. I won't be mean. Yeah. Keep in mind, one thing is that not everyone will like every game. Even AAA titles, when they try to make the perfect game, they can't, and not everyone will love it. So, in my opinion, if you make a game that you just think some people will like for example, I know I would like this, and to me, that's good enough for me. Um, so even though you might be looking at this and saying, well, Kyle, I don't know if I'd want to play this game. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. If for indie games, that's always the way it goes, right? Not really playable by everyone. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I definitely recommend if you like big, complex making cool factories. I would recommend Factorio or Satisfactory, definitely. Shapes.io, I bought and installed yesterday, so I can't really recommend it, excuse me, yet. But yeah, it's this one seems to be more all about efficiency rather than the other two being about exploration and production and making cool stuff. But I think that's pretty much it for me for my intro to game development workshop. I hope you all seriously enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out later. Send me an email message here at this one, Calvin, or either calvinwinkoop@gmail.com or ubcgamedevelopment@gmail.com, and I'll definitely get back to you. Or if you want to, collaborate on games, that sort of thing, I'm always happy to offer help. All right. So yeah, I think that'll be it from me. I think I have another workshop later today, actually two. So stay tuned for those, and I hope I'll see you there.
Right. Thank you so much, Kyle.
Thank you so much again for teaching us about game development. Why don't we give a warm round of virtual applause?
As we conclude our first part for today's event, I would like to welcome you all to our second session of our event today, and it will be in another Zoom room, so let us move to that quickly. Thank you.